IDW Sonic Comic issue 46. The story confuses me right away because instead of Belle waking up in Starline Ragman's lab after being kidnapped by Motobug, she wakes up in the forest at 5 AM because she magically didn't wake up long before then after being knocked out, and the Motobug's still there. But it's a good one that runs around her to throw up fire-extinguishing dust. That would be more creative and impressive to me if I hadn't already read Spark of Life, where there was a Motobug reprogrammed to be good, and seen SEC Online, where there were nice nicks. This comes out of nowhere. I get why you'd have a Motobug be good, because it's cute looking, I guess. But I would be a lot more impressed if it was a badnik that hadn't been written as good before. How about a good crab meat? I hate that she says gears and starters as an interjection. It's always unrealistic that she talks like that. At least it looks cool that her burnt hand looks like a regular robot hand, because it reminds me of Bunny's cyborg arm. But again, that's not original. It takes better advantage of her being a robot. She figures out that the Motobug pulled her out of harm's way. So, when it was tackling her, when it drove right into her, apparently it was just trying to give her a hug. You'd think it'd know that it would just scare her. It makes sense that she realized this, because if it was a bad Motobug, she'd obviously be killed or kidnapped by now. She finally realizes that she caused the fire, and she tells Tangle that the badnik's good, and thankfully, Tangle immediately believes her to avoid trauma. I like that it's a lot faster than in SA1 where Amy was defending Gamma. I don't think it's just that the badnik had its wires crossed and was glitchy, because then its eyes wouldn't be a harmless white color. I think she's just using wires crossed as an expression, because if that was literal, then the person making it would see the mistake they made. Belle says her hand doesn't hurt, which I guess could make sense for a robot. It's not like the hand is any less functional, so why would it hurt? But Tangle's shown to be nice enough to bandage her anyways. At least it's nice to see a yellow bandage. And it's a genuine choice that Tangle reunites with Belle here instead of Belle being kidnapped for the whole arc. It just wasn't foreshadowed at all. But considering how clumsy the foreshadowing is recently, that's for the best. The bear guy says that the road out of here isn't meant for heavy traffic. And with the wind pushing the fire their way, they don't have time for that. Amy says that keeping the gates closed is only going to scare people. But if they were opened, there'd be a stampede. Too bad they can't just call in helicopters. I guess the logic is they take forever to get there. And the biplane only has one seat. Then we see a guy that I swear looks shockingly like Uncle Chuck. But he's gray instead of blue and has big ears. And the very tips of his spines are a different color, which could have easily been done. He still has the same mustache and eyebrows. That's not much of a difference, and honestly this annoys me. I'd rather see Chuck then. He wastes my time yelling at the ranger to open the gates because people are in danger. It makes him look like a jerk, but I understand that he's only angry because he's worried about people. He's passionate, not evil. And he accuses the guy's kid of starting the fire, which is logical. But just waste my time with their arguments so that Amy can smack the ground with her hammer and get their attention from the top of a big boulder. She tells everyone that the road's so small that if everyone tried to leave at once, they'd all get stuck here. Shouldn't the ranger have been able to tell people that right away? He's supposed to be in charge, not Amy of all people. I still can't take her seriously. She really needed a different outfit. And I definitely don't take the ranger seriously either. Amy gets yelled at because she doesn't have a plan right away. It contradicts the earlier issues of the comic to suddenly have her not be the girl who's great at plans anymore. The prospect of her being the leader of the freedom fighters for an entire continuity was one of the things that made this continuity unique. The fact that this guy's really mad and rude right here makes the fact that he resembles Chuck even worse. I'm all for accepting a substitute of Uncle Chuck, but you have to make him a likable character, and not have him show up in just one issue. Amy tells him to give Jewel a minute, and Jewel suddenly becomes insecure and says that she doesn't have the right to tell these people what to do, because she's only good at paperwork and rocks. Here's something I thought about right away. Why doesn't Amy just tell people to only leave the forest 10 at a time? Can't she tell them to just leave, but only half of them at once? How is that not obvious to both of them? I guess you don't want to take the risk. Jewel wastes my time with a bunch of out-of-nowhere angsting, so Amy wastes my time with a bunch of generic pep talk. We are halfway into the story almost, and almost nothing has happened. That kind of pacing makes most of an issue feel like a waste of time. Amy gets thanked because she has her hand on Jewel's hand, and the only justification for people not yelling at them to hurry the fuck up and interrupting them right away is that Amy threatened them with a hammer. Jewel gets inspired to help after all. She says that first, anyone with a high-capacity vehicle can get children and elders to safety. She says their next priority is protecting themselves in the forest, and they can use some equipment for park maintenance from the ranger. While they don't have the resources to put out the fire, they can create a perimeter to contain its spread. Why is nobody suggesting calling the fire department on their phone? Why doesn't she say that immediately? I guess everyone's assuming that someone already did, and they're just taking a while to get here. If there's never any hint that a fire department exists in this entire arc, my intelligence will be insulted. This is a world with robots. I'm pretty sure they have cell phones and firemen by now. I'm assuming we'll see firefighters at the end of the arc, and they'll just get here too late. Because that'd be common sense. Tango coughs because of the smoke, apparently. And when she says it's a side effect of having lungs, it makes her look stupid for not asking Belle to just do this alone, no matter how cowardly Belle is. They see the ranger's kid, and Tango coughs looking vulnerable as she slides down the hill. Predictably, the nice Nick saves them, catching Belle. I'd like an explanation for why it's nice instead of just, it's glitchy because the writer wanted it to be. Because all I'm imagining is that the guy who invented Nicole did it. Belle tells Tango to pull on her tail, and I have no idea how that was supposed to help them. It's only supposed to make her kick, which she didn't do. The motorbug launches past an abyss from the momentum, and Tango uses her tail to grab a rock next to the kid. Despite Belle acting friendly, the kid's still scared and asks her not to hurt him, because she's a talking puppet. So she has to amuse him with an admittedly amusing joke by telling him to listen to something very important, and then squeaking her clown nose. She tells Tango not to tell anyone it does that. He says it wasn't him who started the fire. Out of complete nowhere, it turns out that a brand new character with lightning powers that rips off Monkey Khan started the fire. Rather than the common sense that of course Belle started the fire because she had a match show and then fell over. We clearly saw the match near the ground. Or it's supposed to be that the match went out as she fell and I didn't notice. I know for a fact that I saw the fire near the ground. It's more likely that two different people caused the fire. This is confusing. Somehow Belle immediately assumes it wasn't her who caused the fire just because he said that. I can believe that most of the fire was caused by someone else, but that came out of nowhere. She also says that she saw two people fitting that description walking through the fire. It does help for making a new villain make an impact that they have special powers. In a franchise with Blaze the Cat in it, it'd be harder to believe if only the game characters had magic powers unique to them. So while I'm thinking it sure is convenient for the villains that they have magical powers, the same could be said of people like Sonic. Then a burning tree falls towards Belle and the kid. So Tango has to push them out of the way, and she holds them while using her tail to hold onto the edge. But it's written that the edge of the cliff breaks off for no apparent reason from their weight just to have a cliffhanger, where it looks like they're gonna fall so much that it's gonna be certain death. And realistically it would be, but I'm sure they'll be fine. This issue by Evan Stanley was about Amy eventually convincing Jewel to start telling people to evacuate the children from a place with a fire heading towards it, while Tango reunites with Belle in the fort surprisingly and eventually finds the ranger's kid, because he arbitrarily wandered out in the woods at 5 AM just to force the concept of them all falling off a cliff in the ending. Because a burning tree fell at that time, and Tango had to save them from it. Too much of our time was wasted with the story's slow pacing. This arc would be better off cutting stuff and putting the story content that mattered from later issues into its earlier stories. Is there any reason Jewel couldn't have been written to simply start the plan as soon as it was needed, instead of seeing people yell at the ranger for keeping the gates closed? And I can't take it anymore. Having a character with Uncle Chuck's spines, mustache, and eyebrows just made it sting that he's not actually in the comic. And the worst part is that he acts nothing like him, being hot-tempered and unreasonable, with no likable moments. So he's not even a good substitute. So, since there's no way this could be unintentional because it's so obvious, I'm guessing the writer wanted it to be Chuck, but she didn't think she could get away with it. I know Sega owns Society M characters. I've seen the copyright document on the internet. It wouldn't say Sega of America if they didn't own them. It's possible that the resemblance was an accident, but it's not very likely.